Um, and after presenting the selflessness by examining, through examination or analysis of the nature of the phenomena itself, and now he does another analysis through the analyzing the cause of the phenomena, through the cause of phenomena, whether the cause of the phenomena, whether the phenomena exists by depending on cause or not on cause, and what kind of cause, and whether the cause of dependent, whether the cause is, what is the nature of the cause, whether they are, inherently truly existing or non-inherently truly existing. And so I think in that, he refuted the idea about, existing by not depending on the causes, so he presents how all conditioned phenomena depend on causes, and not only causes, but many causes, cause and condition, not just one causes, but by depending on many causes and conditions. And in presentation of that, then he explains, how whether the physical matter or whether it's a consciousness, how they depends on many causes and conditions, how all this, whether it's a physical matter or whether it's the consciousness, how they are produced by depending on not just one cause and condition, but many causes and conditions. Especially he presented how our experiences, whether it's a pleasant experience or unpleasant experiences, how they are, those experiences, how they manifest, or how they arises, how they are produced, by depending on our own actions, due to our own unskillful, unhealthy, unwholesome actions, then suffering is experienced, and due to our own wholesome, healthy, and skillful actions, then pleasant experience are experienced. And such, unskillful and unhealthy, unwholesome action created due to our unsubdued mind. On the other hand, the skillful, healthy, wholesome actions created due to our own discipline and subdued mind, and at the end, it all comes from our minds, and so by depending on, of course, the mind being the main cause of that. And through that presentations, how all conditioned phenomena, whether it's external or internal experiences and so on, how they depend on, how they are produced by depend on many causes and conditions. Therefore reject the idea that those things produced by not depending on cause, without cause, as well as those conditioned phenomena being produced by a permanent cause, because the result is impermanent, the cause should be impermanent, as well as reject the idea that they are created by some kind of all-powerful, whether it's a Ishwara, or Chiso, again, I don't remember the English words, the principles, substance, and so that those ideas are rejected and then presented as how they did all this experience by depending on, are produced by depending on many causes and conditions. So I think, so we are in that, and so again, please feel comfortable when you, if you have any questions, to send the questions by writing or by unmuting and asking directly. I guess we are in page number 149, and I think the verse number, I think maybe is 126. Yeah. So another schools of thoughts, Vishashikas, this is another school of thoughts where they assert, that both animate and inanimate worlds are produced by permanent atomic particles, So now they don't say they are produced by some kind of creator God or Ishvara, but now this school asserts and say that all this, the world and all this is created by that kind of permanent automatic particles, This assertion cannot be accepted because we have already refuted permanent atomic particle above. So that has been already kind of refuted before. So he doesn't want to kind of refute again, same thing, And so that is kind of refuted when the idea of partless particles, where some of the schools says that everything starts from partless particles and many partless particles coming together, then create, first, there is the ultimate partless particles, in which they believe that is the absolute. And then many parts of that kind of particle coming together, then as it becomes gross, then things are created in that, and that had been refuted already before, how that kind of particle does not exist, how that kind of partless particles and permanent particles do not exist. So that has already been refuted before, so he doesn't want to repeat that again here. Okay. Then another school, Samkhya schools, another school of thought, believe that all knowable entities, that means all the phenomena, can be classified under the conscious self and material primal substance. So two of them, together with its manifestations. So manifestation of this so-called primal substance, material primal substance. And among those two, the conscious self and material primal substance, among those two, the self is neither a cause nor an effect. That is what they believe, So they say that self, the conscious self, is neither a cause nor an effect. And whereas the permanent partless material, invisible, so the material primary substance, so that's what they say is that so-called material primary substance is permanent, that object is permanent, not only permanent, is partless, and not only partless, is a material, invisible, and and all creating. So that is primary substance, they say, you know. And that kind of all creating primary substance is asserted to be the cause of the world. So they said that that phenomena, primary substance, which is permanent, partless, invisible, all-powerful, creating material with that kind of qualities, is that is cause of all the world. And so in that sense, it is the creator of the world. So that is their thoughts and view. You know, throughout the histories, there have been, among the intellectuals, there have been a lot of interest and curiosity how the world is formed, how the world is produced. So therefore, the different schools of comes. Some of them saying it is created by God, and some of them saying it's not created by God. And then in such school, like Samkhya, they have this idea is created by such a phenomenon, such called primary substance. And so that is, and then of course, in Buddhist schools, they refute all of that, and then they say it's created by cause and conditions, impermanent cause and conditions, you know, and so then that is where, so again, yeah. So they speak of balanced state of three qualities, you know, equanimity, pleasure, and pain, you know, called purity, activity, and darkness as being the primary substance. So when these three qualities, you know, the three qualities, purity, activity, and darkness, which means purity means equanimity, activity, pleasure, and pain, darkness. When these three are in balance, then that is primary substance. When these three are in balance, you know, then they say, you know, they speak of imbalanced state of those three qualities, you know, all state manifest from that initial imbalance of primary substance as being the world. So when they are in balance, then it is that primary substance, and when it's balanced, then through that imbalance that the world is created. And so therefore is created by that kind of primary substance. So all the world is kind of manifestations of that primary substance. So that is their school of thoughts, you know, how the world's created and what created the world, what is the cause of the world. So that is, so then that kind of thoughts or view is kind of refuted by the middle way schools. And so here it says, this primary substance you accept cannot be, you know, existence. So you say it's created, the world is created by that, but here is saying, how can you say it is created, the world is created by that, because that does not exist at all. The very cause that you say is a creator of the world, that itself does not exist, because it's impossible something that's truly partless to truly exist with threefold nature. You know, one, you say it is partless, but permanent, you know, and on the other hand, you say it has threefold nature in balance, because they say that is what primary substance is, when the threefold, like the equanimity, pleasure, and pain, when they are in balance, then that is the primary substance. So he is saying there is a contradiction here. On one, you say is partless. On other, you say this has these three qualities in balance. When there is these three qualities in balance, then that means there is parts. So there is contradictions. And so therefore, you know, and on the other hand, you say it's truly existing, but if there is not truly existing, anything truly existing at all, And so therefore it cannot be exist, because you say that is truly existence. But then middle way school has already refuted. There's nothing that exists truly, already before, many times. And therefore, one, there's no truly existence of primary substance, because there's nothing that truly exists. Okay, so refuting that. And so therefore, since there is no truly existing primary substance, then there is no creation of that. Okay. On another hand, there is a contradiction, what you say, saying that primary substance is partless. On the other hand, you're saying that it is when these threefold qualities come in balance, then it is the substantial. So that means it has parts. So then that means there is the middle way school saying it's your presentation seems to be contradictions, Likewise, the qualities cannot truly exist, So the three qualities that they talk about cannot truly exist as three, because each of them had three aspects. So, each of them, that is they explain, each of them has three aspects. Even in terms of the equanimity, there's equanimity of the pain of equanimity and the pleasure of equanimity. That is in all of that, there is a three qualities. That is what they assert. And so therefore, what is saying, if each of them have three qualities, if each of three of them has three qualities, then that means they have parts. If they have part, they're dependent arisings. So therefore, it cannot be truly existence. So that is how it is refuted, how it cannot be truly or independently existence, because they are dependent arising. How is it dependent arising? Because those exist by depending on its parts, because each of them have three parts, as you said, So again, that is how it is refuted. So therefore, it cannot be independently existing or truly existence. This latter reason established because you accept that every truly existing manifest phenomena has nature of three qualities, again, the three quality we already, whether the equanimity, the pleasure, and the pain. That is where they okay. Furthermore, so 129, if three qualities, the cause. So this, because they said when these three qualities are in balance, then that is the primary substance, and that is the cause of the world. That is the presentations, Three quality, when they are in balance, then it's a primary substance, and that is the cause of the world that create the world. So that is what they say. So those three causes, again, do not truly exist, They cannot truly exist or independently exist. The existence of phenomena, if the three qualities of cause do not truly exist, then the existence of phenomena such as sound, sound, form, the taste, the smell, tangible object, all of them, that are the manifested. Those are the manifestation of that primary substance, as you said. They are created by that primary substance. Them as effect become extremely far-fetched. So it is saying, if the cause do not exist truly, how can the effect result that is produced by non-truly existence can be truly existence? And so because cause is not truly existent, therefore the effect, the world, that is produced by that also cannot be truly existence. And so therefore, yeah, it is not possible for clothing and like tactile sensations, visual form and sound extra to have same nature of pleasure and so forth, because they have no conscious qualities. They are manifestation of primary substance, which is the matter. And so, so here is saying, you know, through wearing a very soft and warm cloth, then we have a kind of, you know, tactile sensations, you know, feelings of being very warm and very soft, you know. And same way when you hear a sound, if we hear a very beautiful sound, then again, there is a pleasant kind of feeling, you know, pleasant hearing, and through that and pleasant feelings. And if you see a beautiful, beautiful visual form, again, similar, you know, like that. And so, but from your point of view, you know, we cannot have that kind of, it cannot have the same nature, such as the pleasure, the pain, and equanimity, because like the cloth, the visual form, the sound, they do not have conscious qualities. And if they don't have conscious qualities, so how can you feel them? And you know, and so, because again, they assert in each of those objects have these three qualities: the sound, the tangible, the cloth, the sound, the visual. Each of them have those qualities, you know, three qualities: pain, the pleasure, and equanimities, you know. And so then on one hand, you said this is material, primary substance, and on in another matter, you say these qualities, and if it's physical matter, then it cannot have those, cannot have that consciousness if they are physical matter, you know. And so, and then again, Samkhya school, things such as clothing have nature of pleasure and so forth, because they truly are nature of their cause, namely quality of pleasure, pain, from which they become manifest. So again, they know, such as clothing have the nature of pleasure, pain, and equanimity, so forth, mean that because they are the nature of their cause. And their cause is that primary substance, which has these three natures in balance. And when these three natures are not in balance, then that is the manifestation. And so that, and so then that is, so they try to say, you know, those things do have those qualities. And then refuting that. However, things such as clothing are similar to the bodies, you know. So again, all phenomena are like similar to body in a sense. It's being composed of parts. They all are not partless. They all depend on its parts. All phenomena has its parts, whether it's physical matter or whether it's consciousness. They all have part, you know. And something which has part, something which has a part cannot be partless and cannot be truly existence. And so that is the thing. And have we not already refuted true existence of the body with analysis? And so he said, again, he don't need to refute the analysis anymore. Before, when we were analyzing the body, and then you see, you know, same kind of analysis. If it is a truly existing body, you know, then when you try to find within its parts, you should be able to find it. If it's truly existence, and then if we try to seize, you know, is your head the body? Is your arm the body? Is your leg the body? Is your torso body? If you break into those parts, you cannot find the body, the bodiness, or such called the body within each of these parts. And that clearly shows it's not truly existence. It will not exist. The body cannot exist by its own entity, by its own power, without depending on other factors such as its parts. You know, and therefore it clearly shows it's not truly existence. And so therefore here is saying same analysis for everything, all the phenomena such as clothing, the visual form, and sound, and so forth. If you use the analysis, it's the same analysis. And therefore none of them can withstand that kind of analysis, and therefore none of them can be truly existence. So yeah. Furthermore, in your tradition, the cause of clothing, so forth, asserted to be the three quality of pleasure, and so forth. How can this be? Woolen cloth does not arise from pleasures. So here again is saying, you know, in your tradition, the cause for the clothing, you know. So the cause for the clothing is such as like the material, such as woolen, you know, will be one of the materials for the cloth, you know. It could be polyester, it could be woolen, it could be cotton, whatever. So the cost for a cloth, for tactile cloth, would be for the woolen, for example, in one cost. And the woolen cloth, the cost of woolen cloth is the woolen, okay? So you say even the woolen have these qualities, three qualities. All of them have three qualities. All phenomena have three qualities, you know. And so therefore you say in a woolen there is three qualities. That means in woolen there is a quality of pleasure, there's qualities of equanimity, and there's quality of pain. And so that you assert that. And if that is the case, then again it becomes a very strange. Woolen cloth does not arise from pleasure, you know. It is the other way around. You know, by wearing a woolen, let's say by wearing a warm woolen cloth in the winter, you get a pleasure, warmness. Yeah. So where the pleasure come from? The pleasure come from the woolen cloth. Yeah, by wearing the warm woolen cloth. But what you are saying is the woolen cloth is coming from the pleasure, because the cause of the woolen cloth, the cloth has pleasure qualities. Do you get it? What the point that is making? Are we getting it? This kind of argument, the point where it seems you said everything has that three qualities. If that is the case, maybe let's say cotton. The cotton is the cause of cotton cloth. And you say in cotton, there is the quality of pleasure, pain, and equanimity. If that is the case, then, you know, you have to say the cotton or woolen cloth come through the pleasure, because the cause had that qualities. But in our direct experience, what we experience pleasure by wearing that woolen cloth. Is the other way around. If we apply with our direct experience, And so here is saying, you know, if your explanation seems to go against our direct experience, you know. Woolen cloth does not arise from pleasure. It's the other way around. The pleasure arises from the woolen cloth, especially with our direct experience, you know. On the contradictory, even in conventional, that we are not even talking about on ultimate level, even on conventional level, it is seen that pleasure arises from the woolen cloth, you know, even in our everyday life, in our conventional world. In the winter, it's cold and you wear a warm woolen cloth that gives you warmness and pleasure. So pleasureness arises from by wearing that warm woolen cloth. That is our experience. But the way you explain it, it should be the other way around. The woolen cloth arises from the pleasure because the cause of that qualities. So, moreover, Abon analyzes the woolen cloth, the cause is found to have no true existence. Again, you know, like everything, the woolen cloth is also dependent arising. Woolen cloth is parts, and so therefore something which is part, it depends on its parts, is dependent on the parts. Something which has its cause is dependent on the cause. And therefore something which is dependent on its cause and conditions, something which is dependent on its parts cannot be truly existence, you know. So therefore it has no true existence. Therefore pleasure, its effect, you know, can also have no true existence. Since the cause have no true existence, therefore the effect, the result that is produced by that cause also cannot have true existence. And therefore, so yeah. So again, because they assert, you know, this so-called primary substance, which is when these three qualities are in balance, is permanent, partless, materials. So that is their presentation. And so again, that kind of refuting that, especially the permanent part here. It is already refuted the idea it being partless, and now is refuting, and also it refuted the idea that is truly existence, and now is refuting the idea that is permanent. Okay, and so pleasure and other feelings, you know, so other feeling, neutral feelings or painful feelings, you know, those are the three feelings. Normally, you know, when you talk about feeling, three types of feelings: pleasure, pain, and neutral or equanimity or neutral state of the feelings, you know. So other feelings can never be widely apprehended as permanent. So whether it is a pleasure feeling, whether it's a neutral feeling, whether it is a painful feeling, they cannot be permanent. But it seems to present these three qualities are permanent when they are in balance. And so cannot be permanent because they are occasional phenomena. And that means is occasional phenomena means, again, with our direct experience, we can see it, you know, pleasant feeling does not last forever. You know, sometimes we have pleasant feeling and sometimes we don't have pleasant feelings. It's occasional, not always there. Sometimes we have painful feelings and sometimes we don't have painful feelings. It's occasional, not always there. Sometimes we have more neutral feeling and sometimes we don't have neutral feelings. It's occasional. Okay? And again, for that, we don't need any kind of complicating philosophy, reason, and logic. It's our direct experience, our everyday direct experience. Sometimes due to certain cause and conditions, we have a lot of joy feelings. And that does not last. When the cause and condition change, then it does not last, you know. And sometimes we have a very, due to certain cause and conditions, we have very painful feelings. But when the cause and condition change, that feeling goes away. And then it doesn't last, it goes away. Same with the neutral feelings. And so that shows is occasional. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. And that, what does that show? That is occasional, and sometimes it is there and sometimes it's not there. Sometimes it arises and sometimes it goes away. It shows it is dependent on cause and conditions. And when the cause and condition change, our feeling changes. Therefore, those feelings cannot be permanent. Cannot be permanent because it keeps on changing. Because it depends on cause and conditions. So then the idea of that being permanent is again refuted. Again, refuted by that kind of reasoning and logics and direct experience. And then next one, if pleasure will always manifestly present, if it's permanent, then it will always be manifesting all the time, okay? If it's permanent, whether it's pleasure, whether it's painful, or whether it's neutral feeling, that will manifest all the time. It will always be there, you know? If the pleasure, because it's permanent, and therefore it should be always manifesting present, if that is the case, why is it that not always experience a time when pain is produced? So if you said that, for example, if the feeling of pleasure is permanent, therefore is manifesting always, presently, then it is saying, how come when we have a strong painful feeling, why we don't have that pleasant feeling at that moment? You know, it should be there because it's permanent. If it's permanent, it will always be there. But when we are in very strong pain, we don't have that pleasure anymore, that pleasure feeling anymore. And then that, if it is not there, then it clearly shows in that moment when he have very strong, painful feeling, at that moment, if there is no that pleasant feeling, that means that pleasant feeling is not permanent. Because it's not always there. And that could be, we can apply that to the other ways too. If the painful feeling is permanent, then it will always be there. And so when you have great joyful feeling, is that painful feeling there at that moment or not simultaneously? No, you know. So when we have great joyful feeling, if that painful feeling is no more there at that moment, that means it's not permanent. That means it's occasional. And that means it's not always there. That means it's not permanent, you know. So again, and when we have very pleasant feeling, simultaneously at the same time, we don't have, when we have a strong pleasant feeling, we don't have a painful feeling at that moment. When we have painful feeling, we don't have pleasant feeling, same time simultaneously. Is our direct experience, you know. And then Samkhya try to clarify a little bit, you know, try to kind of trying to, when the pain is produced, pleasure is not experienced because it has become subtle. So it is saying, when the pain is produced, the pleasure is there. So now it is saying, pleasure is always there. So now what he is saying is always there. Since it's always there, but why we are not experienced at that moment, he is saying because it's subtle that we are unable to experience. When we have a, strong pain, painful experience, when we are experiencing a very strong pain, the pleasant feeling is there, but it's subtle. Because it's subtle that we are not experiencing it. So therefore it's not there. It doesn't mean it's not there, it is there, but in a subtle. So that is, they try to clarify that a little bit, And it looks is reasonable, isn't it? It feels like it's reasonable that it could be there, and because it's subtle that we are not experiencing it, And then to that, the Madhyamika refute that. How can something permanent be something gross and something subtle? So that is the way. You are saying is permanent. If something is permanent, how can it change from gross to subtle, subtle to gross? If it is changing from gross to subtle and subtle to gross, that means it's changing. If it's changing, how can it be permanent? Permanent cannot be changing. Permanent is unchanging. The meaning of permanent means unchanging. And therefore, you can try to explain it is there and it's subtle, but still it doesn't, you cannot withstand, you cannot prove that is permanent. Because with that, what it shows, it is changing. If it's not changing, then it is gross at the very beginning and it should always remain gross all the time. But now you are saying it's not gross and it is subtle. And that means it has changed from gross to subtle. And sometimes from subtle to gross. And if that is happening, that means there is some change there in that feeling or pleasant feeling being changed. And if something is changing, how can it be permanent? So permanent, if it's permanent, it can't change. And so, and then continue. Since it becomes subtle upon ceasing to be gross, so when it becomes subtle, then it's no more gross, that is why it becomes subtle. It can't be both. So before it's gross, and then from gross, it transforms, it changes into subtle, and therefore it ceasing to be gross. And this alternately gross and subtle feeling must be impermanent because there is changing from gross to subtle, subtle to gross. If we keep on changing like that, then it should be impermanent, not a permanent, something that keep on changing. For similar reason, why do you not accept that all manifest things are impermanent? And so he is saying, not only the feelings. So not only the feelings are impermanent. Why don't you accept all manifesting phenomena as an impermanent instead of as a permanent? Because again, all manifested phenomena also keep on changing, and everything that we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we touch, we can see, they are always changing, and so if they are always changing from one state to another state, from gross to subtle, or from good to bad, bad to good, attractive to unattractive, unattractive to attractive, from being produced to decaying, from decaying to being produced. All things are constantly kind of changing in that way. And so therefore, why don't you, when it's changing like that, not only just a feeling, but all other manifesting phenomena, therefore, it's clear they are impermanent. And since they are impermanent, why don't you accept it as impermanent instead of asserting that as being permanent? So that is the point he's making. So we'll have a 10 minutes break, okay? You can't just be dull. You know, some of the teachings, like loving kindness, compassion, practicing is difficult, but when you are listening to the teaching, your mind doesn't have to be so active, you know. But here, your mind really has to think. Your mind really has to think. So it is a good exercise for our mind, brain, you know. Even we don't really fully understand it. One, we have the imprint. Secondly, I think it helps our mind to be very, very kind of active thinking. So it's a good exercise as well for our brain to our mind. So then again, they try to again. So then again, they try to clarify again a little bit on that, you know, the Samkhya school. And so then, although the various gross and subtle state of pleasure are impermanent, now, you know, if you accept it's a permanent, then you see all this again going against all this reason and logic and all of that. So then again, they're saying, even though all the various gross and subtle state of pleasure, all feeling, whether it's pleasure, whether it's pain, whether it's neutral, they all are impermanent. But the nature of pleasure itself is permanent. So now he's trying to make, again, a little bit of differences. The nature of pleasure itself, or the pain, or neutral itself is permanent, but if it is gross pleasure or subtle pleasure, then it is impermanent. So now is again, then the middle way school, again, even that refute that, and how that does not also withstand the reasoning and logic. Since the gross and subtle form of pleasures, you know, now you are saying, since gross and are nothing other than pleasure itself, you know, you cannot find something called different separate pleasure, and then there is a separate gross pleasure or subtle pleasure, you know. Whether it's a gross pleasure or whether it's a subtle pleasure, it's pleasure itself. It's a pleasure, you know. It is not that there is a separate gross pleasure which is not a pleasure, or subtle pleasure which is not a pleasure, you know. So therefore, since there is no such, since there is no gross and subtle pleasures separate from the pleasure itself, and so therefore, you know, since whether it's a gross or whether it's subtle, since they are impermanent, as you said, therefore the nature of them, the nature of the gross and subtle pleasure is the pleasure, and that pleasure itself clearly must be impermanent as well. And so then he's saying, you know, you have no other choice to then accept that being impermanent, because you're trying to kind of differentiate is unable to kind of withstand. If you said there is a separate gross and subtle pleasure from the pleasure, then you might be able to differentiate that way. But here he's saying there is no separate gross or subtle pleasure from pleasure itself. And so therefore that kind of trying to differentiate that is unable to withstand that kind of reasoning. And so therefore you have no choice but to accept them as being impermanent as well, you know. If you accept something cannot be produced from nothing because it does not exist in nothingness, just as the oil can never come from the sand. This verses kind of seem to be missing from the Tibetan version. I didn't kind of see that one. And also, I don't know why this one is coming here, this verse, because it doesn't seem to relate with the exact discussion that they are going through now. If you accept something cannot be produced from nothing, of course, also Buddhists will say that, you know, something cannot be produced from nothing, you know, because it knows that exists in nothingness, just as oil can never come. For example, if you try to squeeze sand, you know, with hand, there will never be oil. If you squeeze mustard seed, then there will be oil, you know. Mustard seed, if you squeeze them, then there is oil because there's oil inside the mustard seeds, you know. So you can produce oil by squeezing it. But with the sand, you can squeeze as much as you can, as long as possible, but there is no, you are not get any oil because there's nothing in that oilness. And so therefore, if there's nothing in that, then it cannot be produced. Thus, while you do not accept productions of manifest entity that are previously non-existent, you do count that manifest entity must abide at the time of the cause. Because although at the previous time they are in an unmanifest state, later at the time of effect they arise in manifest form. So this is again another subject of debate between the Buddhist and non-Buddhist, like a Samkhya school. In Samkhya school, there is a sense of belief, or they assert that the effect, the result, is within the cause. The full potential is within the cause, and therefore the result is in, and therefore that what they call self-existence. And that idea is refuted. Where in Nagarjuna he refuted, with the recent logic, how why the thing does not exist by itself, why thing does not exist by others, why thing does not exist by both of them, and how thing and how thing does not exist by not depending on cause. So we already went through how thing refute how thing does not exist without cause. Okay, and now is refuting the idea about existing by itself. And existing by itself means, for example, like in let's say in the seed of a plant, you know, they say the plant is in the seed. The plant is the result, and the seed is the cause. In Samkhya schools, they say the plant is in the seed. The result is in the seed. It is just that it has not manifested at that time. Okay? At the seed time, the plant is there, but it's not manifesting. When it's manifested, then you say the plant has grown up. Plant has been produced. That is what they said. But actually, the plant is in the seed. And the reason is because the full potential to produce the seed is, plant is in the seed. Therefore, they said the plant is in the seed in unmanifesting way. And when it manifests, then you say it is produced, you know. And so then the Buddhists refute that, you know. If that is the case, then you know, then it will be endless, you know. If it is already if it's already being produced, then why is it need to produce again? Because it is, you say it is being already there. It's not only manifesting, but it is there. So what is point of another kind of manifesting is because it is already there. The plant is already there, you know. And so therefore that kind of, and so that is where this one comes, you know. That is where it says, thus, while you do not accept productions of manifest entity that were previously not existing, you do count the manifest entities must abide at the time of their cause. Okay? For example, the plant being in the seed. Okay? The plant being in the seed of the plant. That is what they says, you know. Because although at the previous time, they are an unmanifest state. So in the seed, at the seed time, it's unmanifesting time. The plant is there in the seed, but it's not previously, when it's a seed, it's not manifesting, you know, unmanifest. Later, at the time of effect, they arise in a manifest form. So that is what then later when it grows, you know, when it grows, then they say then, and that is when it is manifesting form. However, if the effect, okay, such as the plant, abide in the cause, the seed, okay, example, then to eat food would be eat excrement. Seems a little bit kind of extreme examples. It seems to be a little bit kind of, Shantapa is going a little bit kind of extreme example here. And so what it is saying is, you know, the food we eat create the karkas later, you know, the blood, some of them create the blood, some of them nourish our body, some of them become the karka, the urines, what we drink and what we eat become excrement or the karka, you know. What is the other word for the karka? Excrement, and I think like when you go to a hospital, what they say, urine and when they check?
Feces.
Huh?
I think feces.
No,
Feces?
it's stool.
Stool. That was the word I'm trying to find. Yeah, because I hear when you go to a hospital for checkup, stools, that is sometimes they use that word, stool and urines. Yeah. So some of the food become a stool. Yeah. And so the food is the cause of the stool. And so here, if you say, so you have to say the effect, the stool is in the cause, the food, okay? So that would mean because the stool, the effect is in the cause, the food, that would means when you eat the food, that means you are eating a stool. I don't know what Samkhya will answer to that. Maybe I'm sure they have a better way of answering, and then the way Shantideva make them look like a very fool, But here, the way it is Shantideva arguing is that, if you say the result, the effect is in the cause, that will means the stool is in the cause, the food. And if you say the stool, the karga is in the food, because it's the result is in the cause, then that means when you eat the cause, the food, that means you will be, it is saying that you are eating the karga or stool, So then, so that is how the argument is made, and it's kind of interesting argument, but I don't know really the Samkhya school will kind of, I don't think they will say they would not accept that they are eating a stool, but indirectly it would be like that, because you say the effect is in the cause, and the food is the cause and the stool is the effect, and so therefore indirectly, even you don't accept that directly, but indirectly you will have to accept that. That is the point making, on the basis of that, that idea. Where is that? Okay. And then another argument, similar argument that he's making here is, you should purchase and wear cotton seed with the money you pay for clothing. So again, same idea, the cotton seed is the cause, and the cotton cloth that made out of that cotton seed is the result, and that result, cotton cloth, is in the seed, because you say it is there in the unmanifesting way. And if the cloth is in the seed, then when you need to wear a cloth, why don't you buy the seed? Because cloth is there. And so therefore you buy the seed and you wear the cloth. So again, even though they will not accept that directly, but then he said indirectly you will have to accept that. Indirectly you will have to accept that, because you assert that the result is in the cause. It is just that it's not manifested, it is there in unmanifesting way, and therefore again the argument is, so instead of buying a cloth, why don't you buy whether it's a woolen or cotton cloth, why don't you buy a woolen or cotton and then wear that, because the woolen or cotton clothing in that. And so that is the way it's made, the point it's making. Then the Samkhya school, the Samkhya school again try to come with something. Although things do not exist in this way, the confused people of the world, ignorant, confused people in the world, do not wear the cotton seed because they cannot see clothing in them, So then now it's trying to kind of make a little bit of clarifying, or a little bit of different explanations. So here is saying, if they understand that, probably then there will be that, but because they are confused, ignorance, they don't see the effect into the cause, and therefore that is, and then to that the Mind-only school, no, I mean, middle way school make that argument. At even the Kapala, so the founder of your traditions, Samkhya school, whom you accept as knower of the truth, wear clothing and not cotton seeds. Does that mean he is ignorant and confused as well? Do you get it? Where the Shantideva was trying to make point now? Because they are saying with the ordinary beings, they are confused and ignorant. They don't see the result in the cause. So here saying your founder, you say he is all-knowing, and he's not confused, and he's not ignorant. And if he's not ignorant, not confused, he will understand the effect is in the cause. And if the effect is in the cause, and in these cases, then it will means, the cloth that we wear made out of cotton is in the cotton seed. In cotton seed, there is the cloth. If that is the case, then why don't he wear the cotton seed? Because the cloth is there and he's not confused and ignorant. We are confused and ignorant. We might not be aware it, but what about him? So that is, thus this must have been true for him as well. So that means, there's no exceptions. And furthermore, because in your traditions, knower of the truth, the effect would exist in worldly persons, the cause. Why do worldly people not see clothing in the cotton seed? It followed that. So again, it is saying, I don't know about this exactly how this works. Whether they accept, whether they're maybe this tradition also means this Kabila, the founder of these traditions, maybe also probably they accept they were also ordinary being at the very beginning, with the ignorant, confused, and then over the time with the practice, they became just like sentient beings becoming enlightened, Similarly, sentient beings who are ignorant and confused at the very beginning, and with the practice over the time, you become more and more enlightened, less and less ignorant, less and less confused. If that's the case, then sentient beings is the cause and the Buddha is the result. Yeah. And so similarly, in that way, then there's a confused sentient beings, and that is the cause. And then the Kabila, which is more enlightened, is the result, the effect. And if that is the case, then the effect will be in the cause, as you said, And so that means Kabila will be in the confused sentient beings, And so therefore, if it is in the confused sentient beings, so if that Kabila, knower of the truth, is in the worldly sentient beings or worldly persons, then why wouldn't the worldly person also not see that? Just as he see that, just as he is able to see it, the worldly person should be able to see it because he is within the worldly sentient beings. Do you get the point that he's making? Same kind of argument or previous argument. If the cause, if the effect in the cause, same argument. The knower of the truth will be, because it's the effect and the cause is the worldly person, it will be within the worldly persons, and is within the worldly person, just as he's able to see it, not confused and not ignorant. Also, worldly person will be not confused and not ignorant. And so why wouldn't he know? So that it follow that they should. So that is the same kind of argument that making. And again, I think the Samkhya school again try to clarify more. I know. Indeed, a knower of the truth does exist in its cause. So again, it is saying the knower of the truth, the Kapila, is in its cause, the worldly persons. But at that time, the being a cause, but at the time of being a cause, all the state of mind of worldly people are invalid. Therefore, they do not understand. So therefore, they are confused, they are ignorant, and they are not. Therefore, they are not. They don't understand. That's all. So, but I think the point is same. If even though at that time, even though worldly beings are confused, in that state, it is confused, and therefore not understanding. But if the knower of the truth is in that, then why we should buy? In that case, even the effect, such as food, clothing, the knower of the truth, extra, that they clearly see would be untrue, because they too would be object of deceived mind. And then Samkhya, if according to you, Madhyamika, even valid cognition are not valid, deceived, within the emptiness, their understanding also be false. It must be therefore meditation upon ultimate truth of emptiness is surely incorrect. So again, then they try to refute, So in the middle way schools, of course, there are slightly different presentations of what is valid cognizers between the different schools of the different Buddhist schools, okay? Among the different Buddhist schools, there are different presentations of what valid cognizer is, okay? The meaning of valid cognizer or definition of valid cognizance is slightly different. But in Prasangika middle way schools, there is a valid cognizer and non-valid cognizers. And even the valid cognizers are presented as a deceived or mistaken mind. So it can be valid cognizer at the same time mistaken mind. It seems contradicting, isn't it? So the other Buddhist schools, if it's valid cognizer, then it will be unmistaken. All of them will be unmistaken. The other than Prasangika, other Buddhist schools, if it's a valid cognizer, then it has to be unmistaken mind. But one of the difference is in Prasangika, middle way school, they assert it can be both valid cognizing as well as deceived mind. And so, and again, because it's relative. Valid cognizer because the mind is unmistaken to the main object of its apprehensions. For example, the I consciousness that is perceiving this book as a book. Okay? Do you get it? The I consciousness that is perceiving this book as a book is a valid cognizer. Okay? The main object of that I consciousness that perceiving book is the book. And so therefore is unmistaken in perceiving the book. From that point of view, is a valid cognizer. But it is mistaken because the book appeared as truly existing to the mind, to the consciousness, but it does not truly exist. Do you get it? Therefore, it is deceiving and mistaken. So it can be both valid as well as mistaken in relation to different objects. Do you get it? In relation to the book is valid cognizer. In relation to the appearance of truly existent is mistaken mind. And so this Samkhya school not being able to understand that difference, that is where the argument comes, okay? That is where the argument comes, because they don't understand why Prasangikas says is both valid cognizer as well as deceptive or mistaken, because it's mistaken in terms of the appearance of truly existence in relation to that, and not being able to distinguish that too, then this argument comes, not because of not being able to distinguish that too, you know. And so therefore, that is where, according to you, Mother Mika, even the valid cognizer are not valid because it's mistaken, okay? Because it's mistaken and because it's a deceit. Prasangika's thought of schools in sentient beings only during the meditative equipoise. That mind is only that mind is undeceived. All other minds of sentient beings are deceived because there is appearance of truly existence to all other minds of the objects. But in a meditative equipoise, when someone is meditating on emptiness directly, then there is no appearance of truly existence. And therefore, in that state, is undeceived, because when there is a direct realization of emptiness, and when someone is that deep meditative equipoise, then there is no appearance of object as truly existence. And therefore, that mind is only the mind of sentient being, which is undeceived. All other is deceived mind, because there is appearance of truly existence. Okay? And so that is, so then they say it cannot be valid because it's a deceit. And if it is a deceived mind and it's not valid, so then we say within the emptiness, the understanding also become a false, you know? Because if the mind is a deceptive mind, then the object that is apprehended also have to be deceived. That is what they think. Again, the reason here is not being able to distinguish two, why is valid and why it is deceptive. It's in relation to different things. And when you don't see that, then it seems contradictions, you know, deceptive, being deceived and being a valid cognizer. Do you get it? It seems is contradictions. If it is just related to same object, then it is a contradiction. How can a mind be deceived to the book at the same time valid cognizes the book, you know? And so they couldn't distinguish these two, and that is the come. So then that is where is the, yeah, within the emptiness, their understanding also become a false. And so they are saying then it must be that emptiness might be also false, because the mind that is perceiving, that is a deceptive mind. And if the emptiness is false and deceptive, then therefore meditation upon ultimate truth of emptiness is surely incorrect. And so therefore then meditating on emptiness is meditating on something deceptive, false objects. If that is the case, then by meditating on emptiness, you cannot overcome deceptions, deceptive minds, ignorance, confused and deceptions and ignorant mind. So then they are making, how can, by meditating on emptiness, how can we overcome all the ignorance, all the confused mind, all the deceptive mind. Isn't that the case? So that is what they are trying to make. On one hand, you are saying meditating on emptiness is to overcome all the deception mind, all the ignorance, all the confusion mind. And they're saying, you said that, but how can that be? How can that be? By meditating on emptiness, how can it overcome deceptive mind? Because the emptiness itself is false and deceptive. Because the very mind which is perceiving the emptiness is very deceptive. So that is the kind of the point, argument they are making. And then, the mind only will clarify that, distinguish that. I think I already explained, that when it is a valid cognizer, it's a valid cognizer to the main object. When it's a deceptive, it is a deceptive with the appearance of truly existence. So it's two different objects. So when the mind is meditating on emptiness, it is valid cognizing to the emptiness. Is not mistaken to the emptiness, the objects. The mind who is meditating on emptiness. Okay? Not to the, so it is a valid cognizer to the emptiness. Then, but the deceptive is the appearance of that emptiness as truly existence. That is where the deceptive is. So you have to distinguish these two things. And so that is where I think they come. Without contacting or apprehending the true existence, which the mind has imputed, one will not apprehend its non-true existence, its emptiness. So basically what it means is in order to know there's no John in this house, okay? You have to know who John is. If you don't know who John is, how can you know there's no John in this house? If someone says, is there a John in the house? You cannot say there is no John in this house unless you know who the John is. Similarly, in order to understand emptiness or non-truly existing, you have to have some understanding what truly existing means. On the basis of understanding what truly existing means, then by refuting that, and then we understand non-existing without truly existence. Do you get it? Just like in order to say, John is not here, John is non-existence, you have to know who John is. Similarly, to say something is non-truly existent, first you have to know what truly existent means. Without knowing what truly existent is, then you wouldn't know the entry of truly existence. And so in the same way, without having the thought of son of barren women, one cannot consider he's dead, So in order to, say someone is dead, first you need to have there's someone, if you don't have that, then you cannot talk about that being alive or dead of someone. And because non-true existence dependent upon true existence in that way, because we can only talk about non-true existence only in relation to true existence. In that way, non-true existence is dependent on true existence. Because without that, we cannot talk about non-true existence. We can only talk about non-true existence in only relation to true existence. We can only talk about impermanent in relation to permanent. We can only talk about non-absolute existence in only relation to the absolute. We can talk only about relative only in relation to absolute. So they all are dependent on that. Then again, here it comes dependent arising. As we have been saying before, normally we take for granted, non-truly existent as being absolute, not depending on something, And so again, coming back, it's always reminding that how everything is depending on, including the emptiness, not truly existent, is depending. you know. Then non-true existence, that is the emptiness, you know. Non-true existence, that is negation of false existence. The false existence is, you know, true existence. So true existence is a false existence. It does not exist, but to our mind, it appears as existent that way. So it is a false existence. And emptiness or non-true existence and negations of that false existence or false appearance of that which is truly existence is clearly false because it has no true independent existence, because it's a dependent existence, and because it's dependent existence, because it's dependent on the true existence for non-true existence. Nevertheless, is quite valid. Even that is the case, it's valid to meditate on emptiness. There's a purpose to meditate on emptiness. There is reason, good reason to meditate on emptiness. There is a valid reason to meditate on emptiness because it is the remedy, you know. The wisdom relies on emptiness. Through meditation is the remedy that eliminates the apprehension of true existence, is the remedy or antidote that destroy and overcome the confusion states of the ignorance of true grasping or truly grasping of truly existence. And then, for example, when his child dies in the dream, the dreamer thought of the child non-existent caused the thought of child existence to cease. You know, so in the dream, someone explained, dream of the child dying in the dream. And when when in the dream state, when there is the thought of child dying and non-existence, then that causes the thought of child alive being ceased, you know. In the dream now you think there is no more the child being alive has been ceased because of that thought that child have died. And similarly, you know, although the thought of his non-existence is false, you know, so if someone is dreaming of a child dying, it's a false, you know, because child didn't die, but it is all in dream, and therefore it is false. But even though it is a false and it is just a dream, not real, it still has the ability to abandon the thought of existence. It functions. It has certain effect, you know, certain effect, because the effect that has is even the dream of child dying is a false. Still, it affect the thought in the dream that the child is alive. Do you get it? So it doesn't mean because it's false, it doesn't have any effect. And so therefore, even emptiness is false. Still, it has effect. Do you get it? Even the emptiness is not truly existence, therefore is false. Even the emptiness is not truly existence and non-truly existence, therefore is false. Even though it's not truly existent and false, still it has the effect to overcome the delusions, to overcome the confusion state. And therefore, there is a reason, valid reason to meditate on emptiness. So that is the point that, so I think, so you have a lot of homework to do, to think. You can read about it, you can continue to read it again and trying to see whether you can kind of make sense of it, all this argument back and forth, and how, yeah, and then again, you can try to listen again if you cannot kind of fully grasp by just reading. And so anyway, it is a good exercise to your mind Your mind cannot be dull.